Did you just record that?
Yes, I did.
Warmed up now.
That started out a little bit louder than I thought it was going to.
Let's do this.
Let's do this.
Yeah. No, like I said, I like to try and warm up a little bit, and then I always find a funny spot to start it, just because it gets everybody going with a laugh. Trust me, I've started in more awkward positions than that, so is not as bad as it gets. Oh, it's exactly what she said. I think the transvestite conversation, I think, was the worst one, like, start off that we had.
Oh, I don't remember how it started.
Oh, I remember exactly how that one started, because it started with the question of would you ever? And I was like, yeah. And then everyone got a little freaked out because, Troy wasn't expecting that answer. Yeah.
You know what?
He should have put a little bit more thought into that before he asked me, because like, hey, what's up? I told him up front, like probably even the first time we talked, maybe the first or second time, but he knew pretty early on, not completely straight. So if you ask me a question and you're not expecting that kind of answer, that's on you. So
yeah. That's what I love. My brother, when we go places and someone will, I don't know if it's the way he carries himself, sometimes they don't expect it, and
right.
Then they'll ask a question and he'll go, "Oh, I'm gay," and they'll just be like, "Whoa, oh, okay, like, yeah."
Hey, some of us blend in better than others. I'm just saying, like, I mean, some of us are quite possible. See, that's the thing, like
his attitude, right?
Yeah.
When he gets passed by and they're like, "Oh, okay, so you guys," and then he'll go, "I am so gay. What are you?" And then because they don't expect it, but then they hear it and they think and go, yeah,
no,
my bad.
Mm-hmm. Just put a little bit of effort into this. See, sometimes, for me, it's the exact opposite. Every now and then I'll do kind of that reaction of like, "Oh my God," or like, "Hey," and they'll be like, well, "You do that really well." And I'm like, "I know." And it's not because I'm overly feminine. I just have quite a bit of feminine charm to me. And so then they'll start thinking about it. They'll be like, "No," because, I look like this and I've got the beard and everything. Then I'm just like, okay, you know what? You'll think back on 5 or 6 of our conversations and then you'll start to question things. It'll come out.
They think dad bod, but what they're really thinking is bear? Oh, shit.
Rawr. Rawr. That's why, like, I think I made a joke, something to John about me coming out or whatever, and he was like, "No, I knew." And I was like, "You didn't know as soon as you think you knew, but like, yeah, you probably figured it out." Just because anyway, I've gone over that situation on here before. So I didn't really do an intro to this. That's kind of the way that this rolls. I don't know if you remember, because it's been so long since we've done a full proper episode, but I'm really bad at the intro.
It's been a while.
It is, and I'm still horrible at the intro. That is not going to come with time. It's not going to come with practice. Oh, well.
I think for a podcast, I never feel like it needs to have as much of a structure as like a TV show.
Right.
And like most things on YouTube in general, when someone breaks down their episode and does it like a TV show, I almost feel disconnected from the show.
It feels more scripted than it does conversational.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I don't enjoy that much anymore. I think the way of the internet and communicatability through it has made me feel like it should just flow organically.
Yeah.
It should keep going.
Yeah, which is why, like, when we started, everyone was like, "Okay, what are we doing exactly for this episode? Like, what are we going to talk about? Who's going to talk? When they're going to talk?" And I was like, "I don't know. I don't know exactly what's going to be said." I was like, "We have a general idea of what we want to talk about on this episode, and most of the time we relatively stayed close to that. And then plenty of times we came up with a topic, we named the episode, and then we wound up way over there and spent 45 minutes talking about something that was completely unrelated." So,
but I think that brings out the most creativity from an individual, because they're not trying to stick to something. They're not staying on instead they're staying on a train of thought that they enjoy or that they want to talk about. So it just continues in that fashion.
Yeah, because if it was like a structured debate or something, then I could understand, which I was supposed to do one of those, and then it never happened. And I was so excited for it, and it completely fell through, and there was no follow-up on it, and I was really bummed out. But So like a structured debate is one thing, but for me, these episodes were always supposed to be conversational. And an organic conversation doesn't have a structure to it. Like if you ever sit there and just bullshit with your friends and you're sitting there chit-chatting and whatnot, you don't stay on a topic for 45 minutes. And if you do, it's because you've entered into a friendly debate. And that's why you're hammered on it, because you're trying to like convince them of something or, some shit like that. And so like, you know what? We got a general idea. We're going to start with it. Whether we end there or not, oh well. It's an adventure.
I think that's exactly how a podcast should go.
Yeah.
Like to a T. It's not, it's a conversation, not a show. It's not a TV show. Yeah, granted, if you have some questions you want to ask, like we do, right? We have our intro. We want to discuss ourselves. And that makes sense to go through.
Right. Well, that's because that's what this series is about. We're going to have to get in depth on some of this. But for like the rest of it, if it takes you 45 minutes to explain an opinion you have, you don't fully understand your own opinion.
This is true.
Or you're just repeating yourself over and over again because you're trying to convince somebody, which has happened plenty of times on this show. Like we got to an end of an hour and a half episode. And I think that happened on one of the ones with John and Peter. And we were just going back and forth and just saying the same thing over and over again. And it didn't really feel productive at the end of it. I don't think we're going to have that issue here because this is not really opinion related. It's experience related. And it's not trying to convince people of something. It's more of just conveying this adventure that we've been going through, or adventures, because our two adventures are completely different. Like it's similar in the way that, it's been some shit, like it's been some dark times and whatnot, and highs and lows, but the situations themselves are completely different. So to kind of break that down a little bit, what we're doing on this little mini series that Bobby and I are putting together, which of course, those of you, I don't think you've been on the YouTube channel yet, but you were on the original podcast channel, which is still there.
A few episodes.
Yeah. So for anyone that has listened to the podcast episodes, you're going to be familiar with Bobby. For those of you who are just catching up to us on the YouTube channel, this is Bobby. Bobby and I connected because we have similar ideas about society and philosophy and politics and theology, mythology, all of that. We differ a little bit here and there, but not too much. So we connected really well. And then we both started going through some shit. Now I've talked about my shit a little bit on the show before, which is why not much has been done on the show, but Bobby and I are going to try and rectify that. So we put together this little mini series, or we're putting it together, basically building it as we go. And we're going to talk about these adventures. I like that. I'm going to call them adventures.
I've been calling it a journey, but it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Same exact thing.
Yeah. Good band, by the way.
Adventure Time sounds much funner than
Adventure Time. I've actually never seen that, so I don't know the theme song.
The only thing you need to know from them is bacon pancakes.
Bacon pancakes?
Bacon pancakes. Bacon pancakes. Making bacon, put it in a pancake. That's bacon pancakes. You've never heard of that?
No.
Genius.
No,
Genius.
but I love the remix. See, now I never want to hear the original because I've got yours. So people are going to be a little bit familiar with my situation. I've talked about it a couple of times, especially on the trauma positives episode that I did. And that was kind of me trying to do this. I just wasn't being able to articulate what I wanted to, and I wasn't doing a very good job of it. I was just trying to take all of the mishmash that I had in my brain and put it out there to see if it would work, or to see if it would help, because I was trying to untangle the way that my mind was all messed up. And so, people are a little familiar, born with, the heart valve that was malformed, which then caused the aneurysm, which caused a massive amount of heart failure. And now I'm in this shit. So I'll go a little bit more in depth on that later, but if you want to go ahead and give them an idea of the beginning of your adventure, we can start from there.
So
I know, right?
Me, it wasn't, technically it was something I was born with.
Right.
It wasn't anything that anyone knew about. And everything I've understood about it since then is that, an arachnoid cyst, which is what I have, and I will always have it. But it's a cyst that resides between your brain and your skull. It's a membrane. layer in between the brain and skull that the cyst develops inside. Apparently, a lot of people have those, and there's nothing to worry about. And when you're a child, if they develop and the brain has trouble developing around the cyst, or it's extremely large, that's when they would try and perform a surgery.
Right.
And it usually is relevant. It shows up at a very early age, like 3rd grade, right? And what's really weird about my problem is a lot of the symptoms they say occur in children, saying a cyst is a problem.
Right.
I can look back at and go, yeah, I had that as well. But it was all, just never noticed.
Right. Hindsight
and when I got
2020.
older, yeah, like, so they said, depending on where the cyst develops, you can have poor vision and at like 3rd grade have to wear glasses. And like at 6, 7 years old, I had that. And I'm practically blind without glasses. Like, the E at the top of everyone's chart when you go into the doctor's office? I don't know what that is.
Wow.
I can't see that.
Okay, so I wear contacts, but mine aren't that bad.
Yeah. Mine are like basically like tiny little dishes that go in my. No, I'm just kidding. It's like this glass plate. So, that I've always been blessed with shitty vision, and that's a fortunate thing, right? So I got older, in my late 20s is when it actually developed and became a problem. But we didn't know that's what it was because an arachnoid cyst in an age like that is not a problem.
Right.
So doctors misdiagnosed me with Lyme disease, MS, all sorts of shit. You just have brain damage. We don't understand why. Like, that's what they would tell me. And it progressively got worse for 9 years, up until earlier this year. Sometime late last year, it was getting bad. But this year, it looked as if I had a stroke.
Right.
And doctors told me, pretty sure it's MS, maybe it's ALS. We don't know what it is. Like, get your affairs in order is kind of the direction they took with it. Instead of we can do something, it was good luck.
Yeah.
Do you need anything? Would you like counseling? Like,
yeah, here's the timeline.
I want this to go away.
Right.
Yeah. And that's how and I respect some of that. Because some doctors would just, we made this joke before where, oh, you're overweight. Clearly that's the problem. Well, no, the problem started while I was not overweight, and I became overweight with depression and the inability to run and exercise. So now I'm overweight. So yeah.
We didn't start this way. We just got this way.
Yeah. I'm actually, it's funny. Today was the first day I've felt good enough to really almost exercise. And I played today, which is a great stress relief for me because you get to throw shit at things.
Right.
And you get to go walk through the woods. So it's awesome. Like I express it as therapy.
Yeah.
I mean, like, honestly, go pick up a rock and throw it at something. And when you hear a banging or something, oh, it's awesome. It's a great feeling. So don't pick up a rock, go pick up a disc and throw it at chains. It's great.
There you go.
But so my issue headed me down a dark adventure until it led me to a doctor who informed me I needed brain surgery.
Right.
Said, I don't know how else to put it. They wanted to drill into my head, relieve some of that pressure, and tell me I'll be fine. Even though the doctor admitted every test that they performed, flow study on MRI, a couple other things, showed inconclusive. They were like, it says that's not the problem, which is why other doctors said too, this isn't the problem.
Right.
So she basically informed me, and of her 20-something years of doing this, she was about to perform her first surgery on a hunch. So yeah, that was satisfying to think, yeah, let's do this. Go ahead, drill into my head. Tell me I'm going to be fine, you think.
Yeah, that's exactly what you want to hear.
I've been doing this for a long time, and I just want to let you know, I don't know if this will work, but this is your only option. Like, so adventure, that's what we're going to call this?
Yes, adventure.
Adventure time.
That's exactly what we're going to call this. I was trying to see if I could find a way to put the Discord video
That's
up
weird.
here instead of the Ninja video, because the Ninja video, it makes you look like an alien right now. Yeah, you're quite pixelated.
Shall I pause it and restart it? No. It looks good on my end.
Here, let me
see if settings.
Let me turn this one around so you can see what it looks like on this end.
Let me get back to you. Wow.
Right?
Cool. So that's bad compression is what that is.
Okay.
There it goes.
There we
Take
go.
away.
Okay, nice.
So yeah, that's a compression issue where, so maybe I'll just flick back and forth between the two to get it to update. It's probably pulling data from this page and not the other page as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. See, we're still trying to. When I said that we're building this as we go, this is what I mean. We spent 2 hours the other day trying to figure out how to do the audio and video at the same time because we can't find an all-in-one package. Like, it doesn't exist. So we're using 1, 2, 3 different software programs right now.
This is where you go. So if you could put it in the comments, let me know how to do this proper.
Yeah, if someone
I'll give
knows
you
a
a
better
shout
way.
out.
If someone knows a better way, because right now we're using OBS Ninja, and Discord to kind of mash all of this together to be able to put some sort of an episode up. I seem to remember having an easier way before, but I think I'm only thinking that because we were only doing audio at the time.
I think you guys, right, we were only doing audio before, but also you guys were all in the same room. And that makes this difficult because for viewers or listeners and viewers, I'm in Maryland and he is in Texas.
Yeah.
A bit of a gap.
Bit of a gap. Just a little bit of a time delay. Different time zones, different states,
drive.
Different laws. Yeah. I've done that drive. a lot. Oh, my goodness. I'm not gonna lie. I kind of miss being over the road, though. I do. I miss doing those drives.
You're a truck driver, right?
Yeah. And so when my heart finally got bad enough that they told me I absolutely couldn't be behind the wheel anymore, I was I was angry because I was like, okay, I'm losing a massive amount of income. I'm losing this, career that I've built for almost the last decade, but then there was a small part of me that was like, you know what? You've been wanting to get off the road for a long time. So this is your way. However, when I wanted to get off the road, I wanted to get off the road with a plan to get into a new career and start, from there, not have no career. Because one of the things that has me down is that right now, I can't do the things that make me feel better. I can't go for I'm terrified because I want to be able to work out again. I want to be able to go for walks and I want to go on, hikes and stuff like that, things that I used to do, but I'm absolutely terrified of doing them because I don't know what will happen if I raise my heart rate too high. And I'm not talking going to extremes. I'm talking about just at all. Because right now I know that, if I get up and I work around the yard or if I work around the house and, I start doing physical activity, it doesn't go well. And then I wind up stuck in bed for half a day trying to recuperate. So so anyway, I was a little bit relieved. I was like, hey, I'm off the road now. Now, regardless, it's a shitty situation, but I'll figure it out. I'm off the road. And then I watched a movie last night called Trucker with Nathan Fillion. And, I can't remember the female actress. I love Nathan Fillion. I saw his name. I was like, I'm going to watch this because I thought it was Nathan Fillion being a trucker. Turns out he wasn't a trucker at all, but it was still a great movie. And I'm sitting there and I'm watching this chick drive across the country and everything. And I was like, fuck, I missed that. I missed that a lot.
I feel like the hardest part about these adventures is you get to a point where you can't do shit.
Yeah.
And
that's where I'm at.
I mean, for me, and while you're in that position, people around you forget. And they're like, hey, man, why don't you come out with us this weekend? We're going to go blah, 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 blah. And you're like, that would be awesome. However, thanks for reminding me I'm on this fucking adventure.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating. And I think the hardest thing for me is that I pushed myself to keep doing it. And then I would have to bail on friends in the middle of something because I could feel myself slowing down because for a nervous system issue, which is what I have. When you're body starts to overwork, you also retain water, and your system swells to cool it off. But when you have a blood flow restriction like I did, or MS is the same way. This is why they assumed I had that. Our nervous system starts to shut down.
Right.
So you literally will just start your body's functions, your ability to use your limbs or feel sensitivity on your skin. Like this stuff will start shutting down. I would start feeling the effects from just hanging out with friends, being outside in the sun and starting to get hot. And I would go, oh, hey guys, I'll be right back. And then I would just leave.
Yeah.
Because I don't want them to feel bad because they drugged me out into this. And I wanted to hang out with them. But now I'm like, and I get home in time before I can't use my arm and leg.
Yeah. It almost gives you this
a car guy.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, me being a car guy, like you like driving trucks, right? So you got a clutch you always got to deal with.
Well, there's a lot more automatics out there now, but yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I assume they still all ran on clutches just because of how big the systems are.
Nope. DOT is actually trying to force everyone to go automatic. Some of the biggest fleets out there are fully automatic now, like Swift, Warner, CR England. Stevens is still like half and half, but they're pushing for it. But yeah, that just a weird tidbit. But yeah, most of the industry is automatic now.
See, I did autocross and drifted and played around with cars since I was young. So to me, I love the feel of driving a manual. And
same.
I had to give that up a few years ago just because sometimes I couldn't use my left leg. Or like there's a thing called drop foot, where your foot can't lift upwards. Because the muscles controlling it have pretty much gone into atrophy.
Right.
So for me, I couldn't do that to push in a clutch. It would just push the foot back. Or I couldn't push hard enough, and I'd end up using my heel, and then it was clunky. So I was like, "Get the fuck out of here! I can't, I can't even drive a car." Like,
yeah.
So I had to switch to automatic. But my point is there's times when you have to just bail on people that support you and want to be there for you. They just don't know how, and you don't want to tell them just by saying hi to me.
Yeah,
because that doesn't sound supportive.
No, it doesn't.
Sometimes it's as little as that.
Yeah. I mean, it basically what happens in these situations is you get the mindset of it's easier just not to start something because you know you're not going to be able to finish it. And that's what happened to me over like the last 2 or 3 months. I just stopped doing anything because I lacked a lot of motivation. A lot of that had to do with depression. But also my body would give out on me. And so I was like, you know what, if I'm not going to be able to finish this, why would I even start it? And at first it was just bigger things, and then it became smaller things, and then smaller things, and then smaller things. Because, you know, people are like, oh, well, you know, just do what you can and do a little bit at a time, a little bit at a time, a little bit at a time, and eventually you'll finish it. And that makes sense when you're not dealing with the frustration of this used to be something that came easy to me. This is something that came natural to me. And now something that I used to be able to do almost as if it was second nature, I'm struggling with. That hits a lot harder.
It's like that's where, all right, get ready with that sound effect.
I'm not actually going to do that.
I gained a stutter.
Right.
Right. And I had that for months. That is the hardest thing to do, is to take away your subconsciousness.
Right.
Your subconscious function.
Your ability to communicate.
I'd been going deaf over the years just from being in the Army and being around guns. And I used to install stereos for side money. And I thought about learning sign language. And then this shit hit me, and I was like, well, I'd have to learn one-hand sign language. Then I got frustrated because I would get, nauseous and dizzy, so I wouldn't even be able to care to learn sign language. And I couldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, that's tough.
Yeah, I get you, dude.
Having to look at somebody, and I actually started to So if I was having a conversation with someone and was trying to get words out and they would get it before me, I'd go, so that they knew I'm with you. Let's keep moving. I'm not trying to hold you up. Should I feel bad for holding someone up? This is how it goes, man.
Yeah. You're either holding them up or holding them back. And, for me, luckily I didn't have any communication errors. Like, speaking has always come pretty naturally to me. The only issue I had with it, I guess, would be the whole locking myself away from people. Because I shut down a lot mentally and I just stopped talking to people. I stopped going places. But one of the things that I've always done, regardless of being on the road or, how busy I would always make times for friends and family. I'm very social that way. Like the people that I keep close, I would always make time for them and we'd spend time together. We'd parties, barbecue, whatever. And I stopped doing that because I realized that I can't maintain even half an hour of social function because I just mentally get exhausted, but physically I worry about going places because I never know when that heart attack's going to come. I never know when that aneurysm is going to rupture. So like I still go out by myself sometimes, but it'll never be further than just down the road to the store and back. And only on really good days where, I know that I'm feeling all right. If I'm even feeling a little bit iffy, I just don't leave the house because I don't want to be like driving down the road and then gone or trying to get to the car or just walking around the store. I'd rather it happen here at home. Of course, I also told Chelsea I would rather it happen somewhere else. That way she wouldn't have to come home from work and find me. Like I would much rather a stranger find me than somebody I know. But this last Father's Day, all my dad wanted to do was take his new paddle boat to the lake. And so, they got it loaded up. They took it to the lake. All his, granddaughters were there and, everyone's sitting around having a good time. And this was also in that period where I was fighting to get my medication. So the pills that were supposed to be keeping me alive, I couldn't get because of, red tape basically. And I crashed. My blood pressure crashed and, it's 101 degrees outside. My body was freezing. I was cold to the touch because I was getting zero circulation for the most part. And zero is obviously being dramatic. I was getting enough circulation to be alive, but I was cold. And so I ended up having to leave after, 30, 40 minutes and come to the house and just lay in bed for the rest of the day because I was out. I was done for. I can't do those kinds of things anymore. And I didn't even get in the boats. I didn't even go to the water. Like I just went and I crashed out. I was in the heat for too long, I guess. That's the only thing I could think of because I really didn't do a whole lot of walking around or anything. But in being here in Texas, try and avoid the heat. Just do it. I dare you. I dare you.
That is like no joke. One thing I do appreciate about living up here, I think we get 3 weeks of shitty weather,
right.
Heat wise, right? I think 3 weeks. It's probably a month and a half, but like straight. Because I know Texas will go fucking 100 days with 100 degrees or something ridiculous, right?
Oh yeah. That's one of the things that kills me though. Like I grew up in that.
Once.
Yeah, like I grew up on the farm. Like I would work all day out in the heat, and now I'm out there for 5 minutes, and I'm like, oh, I gotta go inside. I gotta sit down. I can't do it. I can't do it. I mean, it basically. I hate to sound egotistical or prideful, but everything that made me, because I also I guess recently I have been trying to mentally and personally challenge some gender stereotypes, right? Just not necessarily saying that they're wrong, because I think some of them are pretty fucking accurate. Okay. And we're not going to get into that whole debate. I promise. It's just the way that I'm about to say this.
You understand? Like I'm intrigued. I love that concept.
Right.
Of,
right.
New perspectives.
So basically,
so don't say we're not going to get into that debate, because now I'm like, oh, what the fuck?
Well, we'll do a different episode for that, for the Daily Dialecticals. Just the way that I was about to say this, because I know some people might, question it or whatever. I don't give a fuck. This is just how I'm going to say it. A lot of what made me feel like a man, right? I can take gender out of it. What made me feel important, what made me feel powerful as a person, I can't do 99% of those things anymore. That was the impact. Like that's what I'm dealing with mentally. And the reason why I've pretty much shut myself down from everyone around me, because how am I supposed to have those conversations? For one, people can be empathetic, but they're not going to be able to relate to that unless they've lost that themselves. And two, I really just don't feel like ruining all of my friends' day with that bullshit, because that's exactly what it would do. So I just don't talk about it.
Out.
Yeah, it's that's one of the lows, the highs and the lows of these adventures. That's definitely one of the lows, because everything that made me feel like I was accomplishing something in life, I just can't do it anymore. And like even the show, when I started the show, I was really excited because I was like, look, I'm probably not going to have that big of an impact. The internet's a huge fucking place and there's a lot of fucking voices on it, but I have all these things in my head and I would like to get them out. Like, I have these opinions. I love having these conversations. So I'm just going to put it out there and see what happens. And then I even lost that. I lost all of my motivation to challenge myself intellectually, because I was like, why would I try and continue developing if I know that there's a very short expiration date to this? I guess that's what it boiled down to. Does that make sense?
That's the shitty part.
Yeah. Because so for people that don't know, I was diagnosed about 7 months ago with congestive heart failure. There's a limitation to that. The average person with that diagnosis doesn't live past 3 to 4 years. I've never been average in any way when it comes to my health. So when things go bad, they typically go really, really bad. So I don't have a very optimistic view of the outcome here. I know what's going to happen. I can feel it most days. Like I can feel my heart. Essentially, I have a valve that's failing, and because it's just not complete. There's a hole in the middle. And if that causes a heart attack, I'm likely not to survive it. I have an aneurysm in my aortic artery. If that ruptures, I'm likely to not survive it. If my blood pressure crashes too hard, which I've gone through a couple of instances where it has crashed and it has gotten kind of dark, I've survived those, but you never know. So I'm basically staring down a very short timeline for all of these things. And that's, I think, where the mental block came in was, sure, physically I'm fucked, right? I can't do a lot of physical activity anymore, but intellectually, let's do it. Sounds great, but then depression gets in the way and says, why bother? Is it going to matter? Is it going to do anything? Is it going to change anything? And I convinced myself of it. I'm slowly coming out of that. If I wasn't, I wouldn't even be doing this. So I'm slowly coming out of that, but that's basically what happened. I just hit that roadblock of, why give a shit if you're not going to be able to get anything out of it?
That's the thing, and we talked about this too, is it may not be for us to get anything out of it.
Yeah.
For God's sakes, can we just make sure other people don't get wrapped into this and not know where to go?
Right.
I think that's the main point of this podcast, is not to establish a boo-hoo channel, woe is me, for everyone to look at us and cheer us on through our adventures.
Yeah, I don't want
that. More so that other people... Right. I mean, hardest thing ever is laying in bed, knowing I can't walk. This is how it was before I got my steroid infusions. Yeah, I had to go sit in a room with cancer patients, watching them just wither away while I got fucking steroids. And anyway, I'm laying in bed before those, and I couldn't physically walk. And talking got so difficult that I just started texting to my wife from the bed.
Yeah.
This is how I was going to live this is how I thought I was going to live out my days.
Yeah.
And I accepted it, dude. A week of doing that, you kind of go, well, here we are. And that's hard for someone to do. That's hard for someone to have to do. So if anyone can hear this and know they're not alone on it, right, but also know that sometimes things work out, sometimes they don't. This is the shitty part of life. But know that it's not their fault. It's not something that you can help. But you can remind other people that it's still worth at least plugging along, whether it be just us podcasting to talk yourself through this psychologically, or to actually podcast and talk about it so that other people can walk through it psychologically. Or even if their relative hears it and goes, holy shit, that's what my nephew has, or that's what my cousin has, or that's what my son has or daughter has, then they can kind of grasp at the reality of how complex it is. Because if you're walking around and you have a relative call you up and say, oh, well, how are you doing today? Fucking same shitty ass way I was yesterday. You're not going to say that.
I get that a lot.
You're going to tell them I'm not doing bad, you know?
Yeah, I'm all right. I'm good. I'm good.
And, yeah, I'm as good as I was and as good as I'm going to be.
Yeah, it gets exhausting having that conversation over and over again. So it's easier to lie to people when they ask you, when they reach out, man, I was thinking about you. How you doing? I'm all right. And then it goes away really quickly. Because for me, I give really short replies, like 2 to 3 words tops, because I don't want to have the conversation, and B, I don't want them to try and force it, right? So
I respect that. But this is me, and this is what I do. You really want to know?
Yeah.
And they'll go, I'm like, look, I get it if you don't really want to know, because I will tell anyone anything. I wear everything on my sleeve. I don't give a fuck. So I'll straight up tell them.
Yeah.
You really want to know? And I'll tell them too. If you don't, it doesn't upset me that you don't.
Right.
This isn't for everyone.
Yeah. Like if you don't have the time to hear everything, I don't have the time to list it off. Well, so for me, I think the reason why I don't do that is because if I just keep it short, then I already know the answer. They know that I'm in a horrible situation. They're just letting me know that they're still there. Right. And I've also been pretty vocal about, I don't want to have these conversations. So they'll be like, hey, thinking about you. How you doing? I'll be like, am I? And they'd be like, cool. And then we leave it at that, because that's like an unspoken understandment of, do you want to know? Not really. Cool. We're not going to talk about it. The ones that really want to know, they'll be like, hey, how you doing? I'll be like, I'm all right. And they'll be like, really? Really? I'm like, yeah, no, I'm good. Really? Okay, here's what's been going on. And then, they kind of, it's them, they do the pushing just enough to be like, hey, don't bullshit me. We know you. We know what you're doing. We want to hear about it anyway. And then I'll go ahead and give them all the details, or at least some of them.
I got a few friends that are like that, and it sucks, because you also start to learn who can and can't take these conversations. Yeah. Because you may have friends who were there for you through all sorts of shit, but then when it gets to this, they're like, ooh, that's a little much. And I get it, because it was too much for me. I didn't want to deal with it. That's why I just walked out of the adventure. You should try that, by the way. You should just say,
yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great. No one's given me a door yet.
Oh, that's weird. They gave me one on the back of my head.
I know. Yeah. See, you went all Tesla and just got it installed. I don't have a door yet. I would love to just walk right the fuck out of this story and start writing a new one. But turns out the author hates me.
Stephen King is the worst. Oh my God.
Oh, speaking of,
I'm sorry, that is a bad joke.
Oh no, I loved it. So you mentioned you find out which of your friends can handle this kind of shit and which can't.
Oh yeah,
and you that is 100% true. I made the mistake of making that decision about a friend, which I think I did out of selfish reasons. And so I told you what happened with my friend Brooke, right? That I was talking to John, and people know John. Hopefully he and I, now that I'm finally starting to work on things again, I'm hoping that he and I, because we had started planning a lot of, material together, and then it fell apart because I fell apart. Like I stopped responding to him. I wasn't able to reach out, and I fell the fuck apart. And I hope, I'm pretty sure he doesn't have any ill will about it, just because he understands, the shit that I'm going through. But I was reaching out to him about, things that were going on in my head instead of her. And she found out about it and basically called me on my bullshit. She started texting me. She's like, well, what the fuck? And at first I thought she was just mad that I was telling him. And I was like, well, look, he's seen some shit. He helps people deal with their problems, helps them try and find, the light on the other side, blah, 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 blah. Then I made the mistake of, I didn't want to put this on you. And she tore my ass a new one. And she was like, it's not up to you to decide what I can and cannot handle. She's like, you're going to tell me. And then if I can't handle it, I can't handle it, but that's not on you. I still feel like it's on me, right? That I don't think that really got through to me, but it was like, it was her way of saying, you're not allowed to cut me out. You're not allowed to shut me out. And I had already made that decision for a lot of my friends because I was like, I'm not going to put this on them. And some of them have been quite vocal and pushed back saying, well, we're not going to fucking let you. So that was kind of cool. But at the same time, I think I did make that mistake of shutting down too many people and not taking the time to really, really see if they could handle it or not. And that was selfish because I just didn't want to have those conversations because they're painful. They're really painful, not just for the other people, but they're painful for me. So I gave myself a little bit of slack because basically I was being a coward. I get that. I just didn't want to have those heart-to-hearts.
I don't know that that's being a coward too much, as it is hard to face reality in a dark situation. And every time you have a conversation with someone else about it, and if you've already done it a few times, you start to go, I don't want to do this again. I kind of want to write it all down and just hand you a fucking pamphlet. It sucks. It's that whole existential reality.
This meeting could have been an email. That's what it is.
But it needs to be personal because of its severity. You know, it's not like it's, hey man, I'm going to be late for work. It's, hey man, I quit because I can't work anymore because my life is coming up to the end.
Right.
That's a shitty conversation.
It is.
I don't care who you are.
It is. And that has a lot to do with
especially when you're not in your 60s.
Right.
Like you're not old. You're not rethinking how to deal with your medical bills because, you know, you've been in and out of the hospital for 10 years because you're getting old and hip dysplasia for humans. So it's different when it's, hey, I'm in every day. And like for me, it's the hardest thing I've had to do was tell my boss and supervisor, I think I have to quit. They're like, dude, you're our hardest employee on this project and this project. We can't have you quit. I'm like, I forgot my fucking shoes this morning when I walked out to the car. I don't think I can keep up. Yeah. It's a tough thing.
Yeah.
And I don't expect people to just wake up and understand it. I don't expect, because this shit took 9 years to get as bad as it did for me.
Right.
And I'm sure you went through some things for a while, and then each doctor visit, you kind of got a little more gloomy, and over the months, you slowly, sank into it.
Well,
to have someone call you who hasn't talked to you in years and then be like, hey, how you doing? And you're like, you're not going to tell them.
Yeah. So for me, it's a little bit different because the bicuspid valve is what I have. You're supposed to have a tricuspid with 3 flaps, right? So I was born with one with 2 flaps that don't fully conjoin. So for people that don't understand, your heart is basically made of chambers and they squeeze to push blood through them. The valves are what keep the blood from flowing back to the previous chamber. And so
check valves.
Huh?
Check valves.
Yeah. So the tricuspid valve has the 3 flaps that open and then they close. They open and then they close. Well, mine looks more like this, where I've got the 2 that open and then close, but it never closes. Right? Right. And so I was born with that. And they caught it in elementary school. I was at basketball practice and we were doing our drills. And I've always been pretty good at running. Like even as I got bigger, I've always been really fast. I actually, when I was trying for the Marine Corps, when I was doing my enlistment and everything, which I didn't make it through, but I told the sergeant, I was like, I don't run. I just lean forward and let gravity do its thing. And then I just keep my legs underneath me. That's all it is. Because as a big dude, people didn't expect me to be fast. But so, yeah. So we were doing our drills, and I was getting slower and slower and slower, and then suddenly I couldn't breathe. And I ended up passing out. And so now I lived out in the country. Most people would think, oh, a kid passes out during, basketball practice. Let's call an ambulance, all this other stuff. Nah, they loaded me up in one of the mom's cars. They drove me home to my grandparents' farm, right? They drove me there. And then they had the conversation about what happened, how's he doing now and all that. And then they made the decision to drive me 2 towns over to the hospital because, of course, there's not a hospital in our town. And we'll talk more about fighting against diagnoses that we don't agree with. I think that needs to be an entire episode. But just for a little humor in this part of the story, when I did get to the hospital, I was diagnosed with sudden infant death syndrome.
What the fuck?
Yes.
I thought that was like this shows my ignorance, right? Which is humorous because of the shit I went through. I have a lot of intelligence in one facet of the human body, and
right.
And you probably do too because you're mostly focused on the heart, what you're dealing with.
Right.
But I always thought that was from like shaking babies.
No, it's not. It's not necessarily from shaking babies. Basically, shaking babies causes brain damage, or you break their neck or anything else like that. So sudden infant death syndrome, sometimes known as cot death, is the sudden and unexpected and unexplained death of an apparently healthy baby. So basically, this is what they say happens when they can't explain what happened. Now, I'm not a baby. I think I was in 4th or 5th grade, somewhere around in there. Because I was still in elementary, but it was bullshit for a doctor to come to my grandmother and be like, yes, this child has sudden infant death syndrome. Well, first off, not an infant. Secondly, not dead.
But they do say a lot of times it comes from a respiratory infection of some sort or a cold, which might contribute to breathing problems, which is why you passed out. I get where they went with it.
You can kind of see maybe, an infant, but
this is called a late-term SIDS.
And essentially what they did is they gave me a breathing treatment and then they sent me home. Right? Now, from there, I went to Children's Hospital in Dallas and went through a full array of tests. And then they came back and they were like, okay, it's his heart and this is what's going on. So I spent years going to Children's Hospital for basically observation. And they were like, it'll become a problem, but right now, he's doing okay. And for a while I kind of struggled, but I was dieting, I was exercising, I got my life back. So I continued going to Children's years and years and years and years and years. But then eventually you become an adult. And when you become an adult, you have to get your own job, your own money, your own insurance, and you got to start doing all these things for yourself. Now, when you come from a poor family and you're trying to pay for your own way through college with a full-time job, and, I ended up having a kid pretty young. I don't blame her for any of my financial situation. However, I wasn't able to keep paying for these observations for them just to tell me over and over again, it's the same. So I stopped going for observation, but I never had any problems. I never had any chest pain. I never had any breathing problems. In my early 20s, I did go through a series of events where I basically went from 20 to 70. But that's just because I developed a genetic, I didn't develop a genetic issue. I had the genetic issue. It just took effect, which was psoriatic arthritis. And so all of my joints started to fall apart and everything like that. Now, I did go through a bunch of medical treatment. I did check up on my heart. And when I checked up on my heart, they were like, yeah, you're fine. You don't have to worry about this. This is what's going on. That took about 1.5 years for me to finally get the answer on. But I got that under control. I got my life back. So I started living my life again. I was still building a career and, doing everything that I should do. And then out of nowhere, I just couldn't breathe. Just could not fucking breathe. I felt like I was having a panic attack. And I sat down, I calmed down, went outside, cooled off all that and everything, and it went away. Oh, about 2 or 3 weeks later, it happened again. And this time I actually got so freaked out about it, I went to the emergency room. Now, bad timing, COVID had really, really started to take effect. So I went in saying, hey, I don't feel good. I feel panicked. I'm sweaty. I'm balmy. I'm cold. I can't breathe. Doctor spent about 2 minutes in the room, said, you know what? You have COVID. They swabbed my nose and they sent me home. He's like, we'll let you know when we get the test results back. That's it. That's all you're going to do. And he's like, no, I'm 100% certain you have COVID. You're fine to leave.
There's the biggest issue I found, and I hate talking about this because this is still fresh for me because the wife's grandmother was an awesome woman. She passed away last October. When they took her into the hospital, she was having respiratory issues and everything. And the only person that was taking care of her, really, going there every single day, was my mother-in-law, who went from her trailer to her house, sanitized before going in, and the grandmother stayed at her house all the time. So there's no way she had exposure unless somebody else had come by and brought it. And as far as they knew, no one did. Couldn't breathe very well. She wasn't feeling good. They walked her in and said, COVID. Just going to lock you over in this room and call it COVID. And my mother-in-law was like, I have COVID. She doesn't have COVID. There's no way, or I would have COVID. Can you not see this? You see this, right? Are you thinking? And of course, she had known some people there because she used to work there. So some logic got brought into play, which doesn't always at the hospital, which blows my mind. But what I did express to her was, I have a feeling a lot of times doctors just, especially during this pandemic, because there is assistance from the government, quick to say COVID, cover those bills and those problems with this. Then when the test results get back, oh, it's not COVID. All right, then it's something else.
Yeah.
So it just shocked me how quick it was done that way. So I don't know if it was a financial decision, which it felt like it was on most accounts,
right,
or if it was just too many people coming in with it that it just became second nature to assume everyone who might have pneumonia actually has COVID.
Right. Well, one of the feedbacks,
vice versa.
Yeah, some of the feedback that I got was, oh, well, doctors' offices and everything were really stressed. They had a lot going on. Well, this was an emergency room at like 2:00 in the morning, and we were the only people there. So,
but you were out in a small town too, right?
Yeah, out here at the lake, and so I was like, they weren't rushed. Okay, we were the only motherfuckers there. They weren't rushed. But so basically, like, I'm just giving the overlay of what all happened because you were talking about the months of the buildup and whatnot. Right after that, I got so I think it was a week later or whatever. Whenever I got the results, it came back no COVID. I was like, well, I'm still having problems breathing. I was like, my brother's got asthma, but I've never had asthma. I know that people can develop it. I was like, I just need to go see my primary care physician. So I set an appointment and I went in and they, did the whole blood pressure, temperature, all of that. The nurse was really concerned. So she brought in the doctor. So I started talking to the doctor, and less than 5 minutes of talking to her, she was like, you need to go to the emergency room here in town right now and get a CT scan done of your lungs. And me thinking maybe I have pneumonia, maybe I've developed asthma. I'm like, whoa, what? And she's like, no, you need to go now. We don't have time for a conversation. And I was still kind of freaking out a little bit. And she was like, I think you have a blood clot in your lungs. You need to go right now. And I was like, well, I'd rather go to Rockwall. It was just about 40 minutes away. And I was like, because they have a better emergency room. And she filled out this piece of paper and she was like, no, you go to the one here in town. You don't have time to go to Rockwall. So immediately I'm like, what the fuck? So then I go to the emergency room and I show them this piece of paper basically saying, hey, my doctor says I need this right now. It's an emergency. 2.5 hours later, I get the scan. Right. So since it was taking a while, I was like, okay, well, maybe she was just a little freaked out, but I'm here at the hospital. They don't seem to be that freaked out. So maybe I'm all right. So I kind of calmed down a little bit. But then after I got the scan done, they brought in a cardiologist from like 3 or 4 floors up or whatever. And he comes down and says, you can't leave the hospital.
Fuck.
What? I was like, y'all weren't in a hurry. Like, what? Huh? And he was like, no. And so he started to break it down a little bit by little bit by little bit. But he was like, essentially, your heart is in such a condition and you're physically in such a condition right now. He's like, I can't in good nature let you leave the hospital. He's like, you have to stay here. And we were just moving into a new house. So I like, we're already stressed and freaked out a little bit. And now I've got to, text Chelsea. I'm not going anywhere. And she was like, well, what do you mean? And I was like, well, don't freak out. I was like, I'm fine as far as I knew. Like, but that's obviously what I'm going to tell people who aren't there, because I'm like, if she's going to drive here, I don't need her like panicked. So I was like, look, I'm fine, but they want to keep me for observation. So they made me stay for 24 hours. After that, I go back to my doctor's office, who sends me to a cardiologist. And luckily I go to Baylor. So they're all pretty much all in the same building. And so I basically walk across the building and I go see a cardiologist, and they run some tests and everything like that. And then he breaks it down for me. And he tells me, you know, hey, this is going on with your valve. You know, your artery is larger than it should be. You've got this aneurysm that's developed. And he goes through all this. So essentially what I'm saying is I had no warning. I was feeling perfectly fine up until I was told you have heart failure and this is your prospective outcome. And then it was, okay, we're going to do these tests. We're going to try these medications. And then it just became that shuffle of go here, go there, do this, do that. Okay, well, we don't really like this. So we're going to try this. We're going to try this. We're going to try this. And there wasn't a whole lot of time to really sit and process all of this. So it wasn't until maybe 2.5 months in that the reality really hit me. Fuck. My heart's done for. Like, it's done for. They're trying to keep it going as long as they possibly can before any type of surgery. But it was almost like this blindside of I was fine, and now every aspect of my life is about to change or has changed. And I was still working, which my cardiologist was not happy about, up until the point where he finally, like, I called him to talk to him, and he was like, are you still driving? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, stop. Because at first he was like, okay, it's fine. We're going to see if we, like, a little bit of treatment. We're going to see if we can, you know, get your ejection fraction rate up. Essentially what was going on is my heart was so weak that it's not pumping enough blood. And so that's your LVEF, your left ventricle ejection fraction rate. Most people are around 55 to 75%. Mine was at 19%. So I had 19% function on that. He's like, we're going to put you into treatment. We'll see if we can get you up high enough to be able to keep driving. And then he finally told me, he was like, no, you're done. You got to get out of the truck, which is essentially him saying, hey, you know, all this work you've done for the last decade, it's gone. It's gone. Yeah. And then it was like, oh, well, maybe you'll get better. Maybe's not a really strong word there. It's just not. You know, like we talked a little bit about when people try and be hopeful, and I don't like that because it upsets me. Like, be real with me. And so then he was real with me. He was like, you're done. You're out of the truck. You've got to do something else. And so now, as much as I absolutely despise it, I'm filing for disability, which I'm not going to talk about that part too much and everything, other than to say it's a complete, utter struggle. But yeah, so I really didn't have this like build up because I knew I had a problem with my heart, but it never was a problem, almost to the point that I kind of forgot that I had a problem with my heart, you know, because like when I went to the doctor, like I said, they originally thought I had a blood clot. That was the whole emergency to get me to the hospital thing. But then a cardiologist came down and I was like, whoa. They said something about my lungs. And he's like, nah, your lungs are fine. I was like, oh, great. He's like, but your heart. I was like, oh, okay, well, this is bad. And then he was like, well, do you have any family, you know, history of this? And then it hit me. I was like, wait, no, I have history of this. And so I had to tell him, I was like, yeah, you know, I've got this issue with my valve. And he was like, laugh, but it's, yeah, no, it's funny because like,
oh wait, oh shit, no, I'm broken.
Yeah,
hold on, let me help you out here.
That was the thing. It had become such a non-issue that I'd kind of forgotten about it, really. Like it wasn't this thing that I had to think about day in and day out like I do now. Now my heart never leaves my mind. I'm thinking about it constantly. Like if it gets quiet enough in the room, I can hear it. I know I can't physically hear it, but I can hear it because I think about it so much. And so, yeah, it is kind of funny for the cardiologist to be like, hey, do you have any family history of heart problems? And then to be like, wait, no, I have the history. I also have the family history, but I have the history. So I had to tell him, and he was like, you didn't think to bring that up? And I was like, well, I was sitting here for my lungs. They didn't say anything about my heart. They told me my lungs were the problem. And because I was a smoker at the time, I realized I'm still vaping, but I've used this to quit smoking. And I went from like the 50 nic from the salt nic down to 12, down to 6, down to 3. So I'm in the process of getting rid of it completely, but that has been a struggle in and of itself. But yeah, so like I was a smoker. I hadn't quit smoking yet. I did that after, I had the conversation with the cardiologist. And so like when they told me lungs, I was like, fuck, man, that makes sense. I smoke. Of course it's my lungs. And then he was like, nah, man, your lungs are fine.
I smoke.
It's your heart.
That's bad.
Yeah. And of course he gave me the answer of, oh, you should probably stop that. Yeah, of course, you're a doctor. You're going to tell me that, right? Yeah. Because you shouldn't smoke. You shouldn't. Kids, please don't. God, don't. And so, yeah, it kind of was this humorous roundabout and everything, but I forgot what I was about to say next because I got stuck on you shouldn't smoke.
But to your point of...
I was just remembering the whole, like, I smoke, but my lungs are fine. It became, okay, yeah, I did have this heart issue. And then of course, his immediate thing was, you a big boy. I was like, I know.
The problem.
I know. And I had that conversation multiple times until finally I got to talk to my actual specialist who was like, you ain't that big. He's like, you could lose some pounds. He's like, but you ain't that big and you've been big for a while. You carry it well. He's like, you're not like fat, which was kind of cool for a doctor to use that terminology. Cause he was just like, bro, you ain't
fat.
That's basically what he was saying. He was like, bro, you ain't fat.
It's that Albert fat.
Yeah.
Meh.
Yeah. So they scoped my heart and there's no plaque, no buildup, no nothing, being big isn't the problem. My diet isn't the problem. It's just the fact that I've got this fucked up valve. But it was just this really, really, it was like speed dating. I would talk to a doctor for 5 to 10 minutes and then go talk to another doctor. And there was nurses and techs in between each one of those doctors and everything. And I really just didn't have the time to fully process what was going on. So when it finally hit me, it was like a train wreck all at once. And I was sitting at home and then it just smashed into my brain. And I've been trying to pick apart the pieces and go through the crime scene and try and figure out some sort of normalcy again. So yeah, it was just, yeah, that was a long ass way of saying, no, there wasn't really a buildup. It all kind of happened like that.
So, and that's like, when you first find out, it's always that abrupt, right? I'm saying like you've worked with this for how long now? Months now?
Oh yeah. So yeah, I've been on the adventure for about 6-7 months now. I would say the worst of it was in November.
That is short.
November, so 9 months. Pregnancy. I've been pregnant with my adventure for 9 months. And this project, this project that we're working on is me giving birth to everything that's going on inside of here. See, this is my cop-out. This can be the cop-out. Instead of having each one of those individual conversations with the people around us, be like, you know what, go watch the show.
And
I don't have the emotional energy. I don't have the emotional strength to have this conversation 10 times in 1 week. So this is going to be my way of putting what's in here to here, and then they can get it from here. And if they want to talk about it more, they can like text me, call me, show up, whatever. But for the most part, this is where it's going to be.
Yeah, that's kind of how I wanted to be able to handle it. And I glad that I don't have the issue now, but it would have made it so much easier just to be able to say, so, I play around and do podcast work, right? Yeah. All right. Go listen to that. And then let me know how you feel about it. And if you've got more questions, write them down and I'll answer them on the podcast. So everyone can have the answer. That does help. Yeah. It helps, bro.
If you have questions, you can actually send me an email and I'll forward them to Bobby. The email is really simple. It's just mattchat, MATTCHAT at downrightdialectical.com. So if there's something that we've said that you want to talk about or you have questions about, or you just have any question in general about what it feels like to know that you're about to die, then
that's a good one.
Send us an email. Yeah. I mean, that's a little deep. It's a little dramatic, but basically if you want to talk about what it's like, then send us the email. I'll forward it to Bobby. We'll both, try and give our best responses that we can because they're going to be different. Our situations are entirely different. Also because he got to take the fucking door.
I basically got the chance. I even said this. I was like, holy shit, I just hit reset. on a video game, right?
Dude,
I hit reset.
I'm telling you right now,
again.
the best way. So essentially, you reaching out to me really is what got me thinking I should do this. You know, because like I said, I'd tried before by doing the trauma positive video, and I had a couple other videos planned. I just didn't have the motivation to work on them. But I knew what your situation was. I hadn't really reached out because I knew that you were struggling with communication and everything. And I was like, you know what? I'm not going to put any more on him. But the best way, so you reached out to me, we talked, and I was like, that is fucking great. And it got that spark going for me again. But what you could have done was being like, hey bro, you still dying? Cause I'm not.
I'll see you on the other side much later.
That would have been so funny.
Goodness.
To normal people, that sounds like it would be the horrible thing to do. But to me, that would have been one of the funniest things that you could have done. I probably would have pissed myself laughing if I got that text.
You still dying? I ain't deep, motherfucker.
I mean, I still would have been as equally happy for you as I am right now, but that would have been hilarious. It's a missed opportunity. It's a missed opportunity.
I just can't do it. I can't do it. I told you, to me, the biggest problem I have with all of it now is survivor's guilt.
Yeah.
I feel bad because there's so many people who have reached out to me that have problems. I've met a guy with traumatic brain injury, and I met him after, like 2 days after I've been told I'm going to probably have surgery to fix me. And this is funny. This is comical. I meet him at a disc golf tournament.
Right.
This dude, really fucking nice guy, but he looks lost. He can't figure out where he's supposed to start at. He's walking around fumbling. So I help him real quick and send him on his way. Never met him before in my life. And then the next round of the tournament, I'm doing bad because the stuttering is like coming and going, but the walking is fucking difficult.
Right.
So throwing something is really hard. So I'm kind of in and out of it, and I get to the card that I'm about to play on, and two other guys are standing there, and there's supposed to be 4 people, and we're waiting for the 4th, and I walk up, and I'm like, guys, I hate to do this, but I'm going to let you know, I'm going to slow this card down. So as soon as we can, let's go ahead and start. I know that we're going to be waiting on people, but there's a gap in front of us, so let's just get rolling. And we were waiting for this person to show up. And the guys in the car were like, all right, well, maybe we'll go ahead and throw. And then one of them gets a message. Your 4th guy is coming very soon. And we're like, oh, shit. Here this guy comes around the corner, his phone, trying to figure out where he's going. And he's the only person not on a card, and everyone else has started throwing now on our second round. I'm like, oh, goodness. So he shows up, and I'm like, hey, man, we got you. Don't worry about it. We'll help you. And he decides to inform me that he has a brain injury. And then in my head, I went, holy fuck, so do I. What are the fucking odds? So we talk about it. We get a couple of jokes in, and the guys standing next to us are like, this shit ain't funny. Fuck is wrong with them? And I'm like, I mean, this is our life now. This is fucking, what are you going to do? You're going to just fucking pout in the corner? Or are you going to get shit together, go play some sports of some sort, and giggle about it, right? So we're like 3 or 4 holes into this. And I'm picking his bag up when he needs it. And I'm helping him because he's doing pretty tough through the hills and everything, trying to get around stuff. So, and there's a log in our path coming up. And I said, hey, man, do you want to try working your way around it, or do you just want to go over it hardcore style? And he was like, if you help, we'll go over it. And I was like, all right. So I'm carrying my backpack on with my discs. I'm carrying his discs in my right hand. And I step over the log, and I hold his hand, and he steps over, and I went, parkour! The whole car was like, he's fucking dying laughing, and he's like, stop, I'm going to fall. Don't make me laugh. Like, you get it. We know. Yeah. This is funny.
Yeah.
And then later on, I have to help him across a bunch of rocks over a creek, and I'm like, hey man, so we got a couple ways we can do this. We can beast master that shit, and you climb on my back, and you just start screaming, 2 men enter, 1 man leave, and I'll carry you across this motherfucker. Or we can basically dance down there. And he was like, Beastmaster? And I was like, yeah, Mad Max, the movie. The midget is on the guy's back, and he's a big heavy. And one of the other guys in the car started snorting laughing because he was trying to hide that he was laughing. And I was like, it's funny, right? And he was like, no. Like, yes, it is, man. It's okay. We know what we're going through.
Yeah.
You don't need to feel like you shouldn't bring it up. We fucking know. And if the person who's going through it has a positive attitude about it, they can handle it. And it may help them to laugh about it because it's an extreme fucking thing.
Yeah, it's gallows humor.
Maybe it is a lost opportunity. I should have called.
You should have. You should have.
How's dying going?
I would have appreciated it. Like I said, I probably would have pissed myself laughing if you had sent that to me. But yeah, so essentially what it boils down to is it's gallows humor. You know, people who are just going through any sort of a tough time. A lot of us, we have a tendency to just make jokes about it. You know, I've talked about it before on the show before. I had a really horrible childhood and everything like that. And I've always had a very dark, twisted sense of humor. And so like with law enforcement or military, you're going to find that sense of humor because you have to find a way to be able to live with the situation that you're in. And so like, I've always had that sense of humor. It wasn't going to be anything new to me when I got into this situation. The jokes have changed. They maybe are a little bit darker than they were before. Because like I'll be in a situation and then like I'll say something really awkward or I'll do something really awkward. And then I'll be like, man, could you imagine if that's when it happened? Everybody in the house gets really upset about it because they're like, oh my God, you got to stop joking about that. I'm like, but it's funny. Like, just so to like me,
going out masturbating.
Yeah. I mean, just any situation like that. Like, you come home and I still got dick in hand, right?
Okay. This is going to be dark. But I'm just saying, if it's going down like that and then you are in a precarious situation, like let's say you're trying to wipe your ass or something, go insane with it. Go insane. I mean, like, reach back there, get some ink on the finger, and then just like write something crazy on the wall. Go with it. Just grit your teeth. Do it.
Or you know what? Just put a finger in. Just put a finger in. That way, when the EMTs have to come and get my body out, they'd be like, you know, he's been doing that wrong. Like, that's not how it works.
It'll be documented. So what happened? Well, first we pulled his hand out of his ass.
Yeah.
That has to be written down somewhere.
Yeah. Because
in a digital age, that shit's there forever.
Exactly. So for me, what it is for a lot of my friends, I met them through really weird fucking stories. Like, we met in really weird fucking ways. And so I kind of want to go out the same way. That way, when it does happen and they have my wake, they could be like, you know, it kind of makes sense that this is the way he went out because listen to how I met this motherfucker. And then it'll start to make sense. It'll give them something to laugh about and be jovial about. Because if anyone is crying and sad at my wake, just know, even though I don't believe in a soul or the afterlife, I'm pissed. Right? Because the wake is supposed to be the remembrance. And if you're sad remembering me, go fuck yourself. You should be happy because I've said way too many funny things and taken people on way too many awesome adventures for them to be sad. Maybe sad that I'm gone. Maybe that they're not going to have those adventures anymore. Go out and find another weird motherfucker like me. We exist.
Or
right?
We
just replace me.
Adventures.
Yeah. Well, just replace me. Fine. Just look, they're never going to be as good.
Get a dildo.
I haven't fucked all my friends. Okay, a dildo's not going to be the solution.
Get a dildo and just call it me. Goddamn.
Wow. Only one aspect of me can be replaced by a dildo. But no, I think it would be a really good opportunity for them to be like to remember how they met me, and then the next time they're in an awkward situation, be like, hey, maybe this isn't awkward. Maybe this is the start of something awesome.
Yeah.
It could be. You never know. So just replace me. I'm not going to first off, I'm dead. I'm not going to give a shit like if you replace me, but it's an opportunity to go out and look for some new, crazy, weird fucking people to interact with. Like, that's my invitation. That's my invitation to my friends and loved ones. Like, just go find another somewhat interesting version of me. It's got to be out there. Humans are not as unique as we think we are, right? There's 7.8 billion people on the planet. There's definitely other versions of me. Hopefully not with a better beard. I've been working on it, man. I love the beard. It's taken a while for me to get used to, because I'm used to either clean shaven or like 5 o'clock shadow. But I've been growing this out for a while now. I trim it every now and then, but yeah, I can't do that.
I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, I ain't shaved in over a month. This just shit doesn't grow.
Yeah, it just grows right here.
That's it.
Yeah. At this point, though, if I shaved, I wouldn't recognize myself. It would just be weird. That and
That's kinda where I'm at.
Chelsea wants like a 24-hour advance notice before I do it. Like, if I were to shave my face, she wants notice.
I took a picture with one of those little filters where it looked like I was shaved. I said to the wife, I said, I shaved. And she was like, no, you didn't. Like, I could tell through the text that her voice went like 6 octaves deeper. And she's like, no, you didn't. And I was like, no, I didn't. She's like, I know. I was like, whoa, my bad. So apparently there's a plan to kill me if I do without letting her know.
See, what I could do, though, and I just thought about this, you know, the whole facial hair thing, because I got a lot to work with, right? When it does happen, I should have a request for whoever's doing, like, because damn it, I'm going to be burned, so it's not going to matter.
Yeah. Just have them shave your beard and put it in a bag and leave it on a table.
No,
next to your ashes.
I was thinking about like a wake where you actually get to see the body. Have them shave it in some weird, fucked up way. Just
you got like the what is that called? The Fu Manchu.
Yeah,
it's just a mustache that keeps going.
Because everyone's used to this, so then they'd show up to the wake and they'd be like, "Oh no."
This is how we're gonna remember him.
It would be like my last little aha. Oh, see, no, I can't do that though, because I was like, you know, I told you I was going to do the recording to play at my wake. And so basically what I want to do, just for the people watching this, because I sometimes forget that there's a camera there and this isn't just a conversation between us. We're still recording. Yeah, we're still recording. An hour and 17 minutes into it. I thought these were going to be like 40-minute snippets, but one of the things that I want to do, and because I did want to kind of break this into chunks and talk about it individually, and this is more like what you do during the planning of the inevitable. But just for the topic that we're on, I want to make videos for people. They're not going to be posted on the channel or anything. These are going to be private videos. I'm going to make one for each one of my friends and, you know, for my kid and all of that. I was thinking the one that I make for the wake, because I'm going to be cremated. There's basically just going to be a jar of me. But I was going to make a video for them to play at the wake, and then that way I could also attend my wake. I was thinking I could do the shave then, but then they would know it because it's real life. Unless I do it while everyone's out of the house, and then I could shave it really funky, do the video, and then go clean shaven.
Yeah, that actually would work. Then like try growing it all back. And just stay recluse for a month or two.
Yeah, but I just thought, like, what if it happens before I grow it back? I don't want to die without the beard. I've grown attached to it. I'm taking the beard with me, man.
Are you going out Valhalla style?
I've thought,
Viking
okay,
style?
so this also would probably be better for that episode. I thought about this long before I got this diagnosis, just because it was a weird thought. When you grow up with a fucked up childhood, you don't ever see yourself getting past a certain age. And so I came up with plans for, like, how am I going to go out? And I've talked to Chelsea about this a little bit, and she's not. I thought she would, like, see a little bit of humor in the conversation. She didn't take it well at all. So I kind of stopped talking to her about it. But one of my ideas is, like, going skydiving, but then, like, detaching from the instructor and just free falling.
Hey, bro, my back itches. Hold on.
Yeah.
What the fuck? And you're just, like, scratching, going, oh yeah, this is great. He's like, oh.
Yeah, because, like, I thought that would be kind of fun. You know, just the whole free fall all the way down, because, you know, I'm not going to feel it, right? Splat. Although I think I remember reading something once upon a time that people, like
Passed
most
out
people die
before.
before they actually hit the ground because they have a heart attack or whatever. Right up my alley. I'm priming and ready
You're like,
for that.
Hey man, I'm gonna, and you don't even disconnect all the way, and you just tap on him, and he's like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah. Well, okay. So originally, when I came up with that plan, I was still healthy, right? So now that's not going to work because no skydiving company in the world is going to let me get on their plane, right? Like I wouldn't pass a physical. I don't know if they make you do a physical, but I wouldn't pass it, right? Because
they ask if you have a heart condition and you have to sign paperwork that says you don't. Other than that, I don't know.
See, I don't know how it works because I've never been able to go skydiving. I want to, but
when I went bungee jumping, they have you like, I can't remember. Yeah, you sign a couple pieces of paper, obviously waivers, but you do sign a medical one that states I know what I'm doing. I'm signing this because I agree that my health is fine. Blah 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 blah.
Oh, so I might be able to get away with it.
Maybe. Depends on how much they give a fuck.
Yeah, but see, Chelsea didn't like that because she's like, no, you're gonna make it like another 30 years, and I was like, okay,
attitude,
definitely, yeah, that's
optimism.
Definitely gonna happen. Which I let her hold on to that optimism because she needs it. For me, I got to be real with the situation, or else I'll drive myself insane. Because if I try and stay hopeful for too much of the day and then like I really start feeling it, it's contradictory in my brain. If I start feeling it and I'm real with myself about the situation, it's easier for me to calm myself down. If that makes sense.
Oh, it 100% makes sense because you had stated this earlier where you were talking about how you would almost forget that you had the problem. That was the weirdest part of the issues that I had is about every 2 to 3 years, I would have a major attack, but every year I would have a small attack that would, and sometimes once every 6 months to 8 months, I'd have just like a week or two, stress-induced probably attack, or adventure.
Yeah.
It would hit me because I would have this, my quest would just kick off all of a sudden, and I would go, oh, fuck, that's right. I'm dying of a neurological disorder, and I have to get my affairs in order because I don't know how this is going to go. And, you would be, for me, it would be like doing something at work or working in my garage, and I would just start feeling nauseous and feeling tired and go, oh, yeah, that's right. I'm dying. This is cool. And you have to then, flip off all of these ideas of things that you want to go do, and you have to tell yourself, okay, let's narrow it down and let's make this realistic. And then, of course, the worse it gets, the more you do that to the point where you go, what the fuck am I supposed to do?
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, you almost forget it's there, and then it's not. And then you have to relive it all.
Yeah. That was a hard.
It comes easier.
I haven't gotten to that part yet.
Well,
I'm getting there.
And I hate to say it because I don't know that you'll get to spend 9 years doing it.
Right.
But over time, you become numb, and that's a bad place to be.
Yeah.
And I'm still like numb to the idea that I'm healthy. Like I don't know that I am. The doc says, come back in 6 months, we'll do another MRI and we'll prove everything is fine. I'm like, are you sure? Like I feel like in 6 months I'm going to go through this all over again. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I'm with you in the sense that it's new for you, but it's not new, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It does.
Because you've been doing it for months.
Yeah. What was hard for us was we'd spent the last 3 years trying to build something together. We were working together. We were saving money. We were acquiring assets. Like we were planning and building towards a future. And then out of nowhere, there's just like this hard stop of, okay, well, I can't help anymore. I'm completely out of work. I'm stuck at the house. Like everything went from like us working together to her having to like start doing everything on her own. And that's been really, really difficult. But that's something that we could probably save for the next one on dealing with your friends and family better.
I don't want to.
This has been a pretty general overview of like what our adventures have been like, and some of the highs, the lows, and some of the funny moments. But I do want to, focus on some of the things that people are not, what people don't expect to have to deal with. Like how to properly deal with your doctor if you don't agree with what they're telling you, or you're uncomfortable in the situation, or how to deal with your insurance company, or how to deal with your pharmacy. Like there's a lot of these aspects that you have to deal with, and people don't have the same amount of relative patience because they're just doing their job, whether they're doing it badly or well, they're just doing their job. They're not feeling the pressure that you're feeling. They're not feeling the stress that you're feeling. And so what seems like an ordinary mundane task is all that much more daunting to you when you're going through one of these kinds of situations. And so like, we're going to take some time to talk about each one of these things because a lot of people, you're not given a realistic expectation of what is about to happen, of what you're about to experience, about what you're going to have to go through. And well, we're just not going to bullshit you. We're going to tell you exactly what we went through. And we'll relay some of the information for people that we know, things that they've gone through. Most of it's going to come from us probably. But this is our way of coping with our adventures by having these conversations with each other, but also relaying some really useful information. Either you've been dealing with this bullshit and you just want somebody you can relate to, or you're just getting into it, or hopefully you never have to experience it and you're perfectly fine, but you're curious, someone that might be in this situation, because a lot of this is going to be able to help you deal with those people too. If you have a friend or a loved one that's dealing with this kind of thing and you lose patience with them or you get frustrated with them, there's a reason why. We're very frustrating to be around, and we don't have a lot of patience because we don't have a lot of time, right? Or, we slow things down because we're just not able to do things the way that we could before. So it will be very useful for everybody. And in particular, like as much as I want to help people that are going through this, I really also want to reach out to those people that like have a friend or a loved one in this situation, because it's awesome for them to be able to kind of get the inside scoop, because it's not always easy for that person that you're connected to open up and talk about this, because we struggled with that completely. Like I said, this is my coward's way out of, I'm just going to put everything on here, and then my friends and loved one can get the information from here. And then if they want to talk more, then they can reach out to me. But I'm just doing it all here because it's easier. It's easier for you because we haven't even known each other that long. We've never even met in person.
Yeah.
But it's easier for me to have this.
Yeah.
It'll happen. Well, maybe not.
I'll show up. I don't even know this fucking guy. I'm just here at the fucking wake, man. Aaron, there's free beer? I don't fucking know this guy. Why am I here again? Just Steve, Frank, Jim. Hey, yeah, Jim was a good guy, okay? He told me to do a eulogy, and I was like, yeah.
Yeah, so maybe it won't. I don't know. But it's just...
I should do that.
It's just easier for me to have these conversations with you.
I don't know this fucking guy.
Yeah, but I don't know the motherfucker. He just showed up. Actually, here's what you do, Bobby. Here's what you do. We'll end on this. Show up in a black cloth with a scythe.
Oh
do it
God.
for me. Do it for me.
I've thought about this so many times, man. I think I told the wife once it'd be fun if we left or went somewhere where she was dressed like that.
Yeah.
It's only funny to me. Oh my goodness.
See, like, okay, I said I would end on that, but yeah, I'm gonna leave it at that. Just show up and do something weird. Just for me, show up and do something weird. Make it awkward, because most of them, it might be their first time meeting you, so they'll be like, "Holy shit, there really is another of him." just make it weird.
Oh my goodness, I got plans now.
Yeah, just make it good. Make it good. All right. Well, yeah, we're gonna end it there. And then we'll see how it goes from here.
This is the outro.
Ooh, that came in really loud. It's Bobby's favorite part.
It's funny to me. It's fucking perfect.